Oh,
Why,
hey.
hello there.
Didn't see you there.
How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Wonderful. Welcome to Beer and Other Shit, episode 15. That is... no, that's not really a notable number, is it?
Not really at all.
No, it's not
Let's
at all.
keep them rolling.
Let's keep it rolling. Fuck it.
But we did do something notable with this particular podcast.
Yes, we did.
So
What did we do?
We
What
went
did we do?
live on location at House of Parliament, which
House
is
of Parliament.
a pub in the East End of Toronto.
Cabbagetown, what up?
Represent.
And on top of that, it was our first on-location podcast. Secondly, it was our first videoed podcast.
Yes.
We're going to try our Joe Rogan shit. We didn't have like 3 cameras with different angles. We had Tiffany, my wonderful girlfriend, holding us the fuck down on her Spielberg shit. She was all up in that, filming it, we were recording it. Hopefully Notion has done a nice job to cut out as much background noise as possible. And we're going to have this up on the Beer and Other Shit YouTube channel as well in its full thing because I don't know what else to do. So if y'all have got any thoughts, if you see the video and you're like, hey, how about you try this? Let us know.
We're open to suggestions.
Completely open. So it was good. Today we interviewed. I'm not going to say his name. It's Jason
Cooch. We'll call him Cooch.
Uncle Cooch.
The beer wizard.
The beer motherfucker. Let me just pass that over for you, Tiff. No worries, babe. The beer wizard from Toronto Urban Adventures Tours, I believe is what it's called.
Really cool dude. Wealth of knowledge, that guy.
He's a G.
Yeah.
I've known him for a while via Facebook, and luckily or strangely, a small world enough, he was good friends with when Scott and I lived together up in here. We're in Toronto right now, by the way, as you can tell by
This beautiful
birchwood fire.
Because it's like minus 35 out right now, so we gotta
At
stay
least,
warm.
staying warm as fuck. And so Jason was homies with our old landlord and roommates and stuff. So small world.
And strangely enough, used to live in the same building that we're
this
in right
very
now.
building. It's just
Ridiculous.
a historical moment. It's wonderful.
But
so what we're going to do before we get into it, we're going to do some sponsors. But let's just quickly, before we get to the sponsors even.
So being beer and other shit, we do drink other shit as well, not just beer. We do prefer the finer things in life. So what we have here is Crown Royal's Northern Harvest Rye.
Can y'all see that?
It's in a CC glass, but
As
it's
you can
Crown
see.
Royal.
Labeled. What else would we do?
It was rated 2015's best whiskey of the year.
Best. If you walk into any LCBO, they have signs up saying they don't fucking have any. These cunts
Sold
are
like
the most
hotcakes.
sought after,
Yeah.
like hotcakes. As 3 previous McDonald's employees in the room. What up, Chanel Williams? Going to be on a future podcast. What it does.
Hotcakes.
You know what I mean? So this shit is pretty lit. Scott is a gentleman enough to, hook a brother up with a motherfucking shot here. So we're going to sip this in front of
And
our
a beautiful
faux
fire.
birchwood fire, whilst we are just briefly recapping Wagwan with it, and then we're going to let the interview speak for itself. So first of all, cheers,
Cheers.
cunt. You know what I'm saying? Shit is good. Now, best in the world. I'm not gonna be. I don't know a lot about whiskeys, or rye as this is. Do you reckon it's best in the world? It's good.
I like it. My favorite whiskey I've had is Johnny Walker Blue Label,
That shit was.
which
that shit was
is
dope.
unreal. Like just the smoothest liquor I've ever put in my mouth. Pause.
Mm-hmm.
And it's aged for a minimum. All the malts are aged for a minimum of 25 years. But let's not talk about that. This is actually quite a delicious whiskey. It's kind of grown on me.
Yeah.
It has like almost like a smoky apple flavor to it.
Okay.
It's definitely a sipping whiskey. I wouldn't mix this with anything. You don't have to. It stands
Yeah,
up
I mean,
to.
you just chucked it in a glass here with a nice little cube.
Yeah.
I'm fucking with this. It says it's got it's smooth with hints of fruit, cloves, and spice. So
Yep.
it's practically a wheat beer.
Essentially.
Practically.
A non-carbonated, super high ABV wheat beer is what
Super.
we're drinking.
What is this motherfucking shit?
That thing's 40.
40? I mean, I can fuck
Yeah.
with that. Doesn't say.
But it is
yeah,
delicious.
it's
Like this is a sip in front of a faux fireplace type of whiskey, in my opinion.
As last evening with Chanel and Tiff, we were out at Folly's Brew Pub, which is another
Yes.
dope ass spot up here in Toronto.
Oh, Dundas, correct?
College.
College.
We were trying to work out.
yeah.
It was college. We were saying in the
They're
podcast.
basically the same
So there
street,
you go.
but-
And we had, or Chanel and Scott had, and we got to have a try. It was called a Pappy.
It's a
Van
Pappy
Winkle.
Van Winkle, the 12-year reserve. Chanel and I have been looking for this this liquor for I don't know how long now, but
Would you say a hot minute?
a hot minute though still.
A hot minute though still, okay.
So I finally found it. This place, Folly, actually has a very extensive whiskey list, which I was surprised
hella
to see
cool for a brew pub,
from
right?
a brew pub, right?
Yeah.
Like probably the most extensive list I've seen, and I knew I was going to find it because it's a pretty sought after whiskey, and if they have all these other whiskeys, I'm like for sure. And I found it, and for like $30 an ounce is actually a pretty good deal considering I've seen it go for $50 at other places in the city.
Yeah.
So we gave it a shot. It was I really liked it. I mean, I would by no means consider myself a whiskey connoisseur. I know shit whiskey and good whiskey, and it was a very good whiskey. Really spicy, and it was strong. Like just the aroma smelling off the glass was like overwhelming.
I would say it'd be more overwhelming than this from even though it was.
Oh yeah, this is like Coors Light compared to that. So
yeah, which is interesting. Why is this whiskey winning these contests or and then that type of stuff is not? Like, what's up with that? Is there some shit going on there?
I have no idea. I haven't even
just
started to delve in the whiskey world really.
Yeah.
So
I'd like if there's any whiskey motherfuckers who know what's up with that, like holla, because we don't really know what's up with it. But yes, we should probably get really quickly. We should go to that theme song.
We're just
gonna be here by the fire. Maybe we should hear a theme song.
Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
That's the joy. Always does.
Always makes me happy,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
So sponsors. Let's get that the fuck out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, who we got? BrewHeads. TheBrewHeads.com. If you hit up TheBrewHeads.com and you use the coupon code BAOS for brewing beer and other shit, you get 15% off your order. Hats, t-shirts, glassware. They got them snifters back, I think, too. The ones you're talking about. The good ones.
I like those.
Coasters. Fucking hop pants, which are yoga pants. They aren't leggings. They're yoga pants.
Well, you have to wear shorts over those, right? Because you're
I always wear shorts over shorts, yeah.
No one wants
but if you're doing yoga, you can probably rock. I used to rock them to the gym like pretty heavy, and everyone looked at me like a funny cunt, but I thugged it out.
As long as you have handsome junk, it's.
Oh yeah, like I tried to make sure I chucked an extra sock down there.
Nice.
That bulge, thebrewheads.com. Secondly, new sponsor, we have Jason's business, which is Toronto Urban Adventures, which is torontourbanadventures.com. If you sign up for one of their tours and you use the code BrewHead, singular,
BrewHead singular,
as you'll hear from Jason, actually in the next episode, let's be real here, you 20% off your tour.
Which is a bargain.
A bargain and a half. And they have they have like the beer, a history of beer tour. And even as you hear in the podcast, Jason is a wealth of knowledge. The dude is extremely intelligent. He's done his fucking homework.
Very well spoken. Knows what's up. Yeah.
And if you go, we would have gone on that tour today if it wasn't cancelled because
just gives us an excuse to go another time.
We'll 100% go another time, and we'll probably live podcast from the tour.
That would be really
as
cool.
We're going, right?
Yeah.
We should do that.
Yeah.
So definitely hit Jason up. Let him know you heard it on the podcast. Shit is lit. And thirdly, we'll go with illnotestudios.com. So if you have a podcast or any other audio needs and you need that shit mixed and mastered, sound like a boss dog that you are.
If you do podcasts in busy restaurants with crying babies and people moving tables and chairs around,
that's your man.
hit up your boy
illnotestudios.com. And the code, I guess you just if you go to illnotestudios.com, you can contact them and you can just be like, hey, yo, I heard this shit on the podcast, beer and other shit, walk one with it. And then they'll be all like, yo, we give you 15% off because that's how Notion's finna do you like that. Because that is what the fuck is up.
That's what's up.
So it's a pretty good episode today. So check it out. It's a good conversation. This is part 1. So this is episode 15, I believe, on the podcast. I did say 14. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Something went wrong in my head. I think I was dropped as a baby. I apologize. But it is episode 15. That is 1-5. Anything else to add?
Nah, let it roll.
I'd say get it up, yeah? And we can do a real quick.
Let's do a little cheers.
Catch your cunts. All right, we rolling. So welcome y'all. This is our first ever
on scene podcast.
There's another word for that. What's it called?
On location.
On location.
Live and on location. We're not really live.
Not necessarily live, but this is pretty cool. So hopefully Notion would have got
awesome.
rid of the fucking background noise and shit. And Jason, welcome, brother.
Thanks very
Jason.
much. Happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. How do you pronounce your last name? I always forget.
Kucherawy.
Kucherawy. Okay.
Yeah, there's actually you add like a funny kind of Ukrainian accent to it if you're actually speaking it in Ukrainian, but the English anglicized version is just Kucherawy.
Okay, good.
Kucherawy. Okay.
Okay, fantastic.
I feel it. Who are you?
My name is C, certified brewhead. Who are you?
I am Scott Cole, beer enthusiast.
Scott Beer Cole.
Scott Beer Cole, throw that in there. Yeah, my middle name. And we are at House on Parliament.
We are at House on Parliament. So this is our first time here. Jason, you are a OG here.
I am. I'm a regular. I live just down the road, just a 5-minute stagger. And,
How convenient.
I am here. All the servers here know my face, if not my name. I've closed this bar many, many times, and I love this place. It's one of the best gastro pubs in the city. So people come here for the food and for the drink. I come here for both.
So that's why you chose here today. You figured it would be a nice...
on a cold day like today, it's minus 23, minus 24.
Minus 31 last time I checked with the wind chill.
Yeah, with the wind chill. Yeah.
Montreal's minus 41, by the way, with the wind chill.
Yeah.
41.
Making us look soft.
Yeah.
We came here for our little summer vacation. Because Toronto's always soft in comparison. And
we just don't have snow. We're cold, but we just don't have snow.
You don't need the snow. It's annoying.
But yeah, I love this place. This is a short hop, skip, and a jump from where I live. And when people visit from out of town, like you guys, this is my hood. This is where I like to bring people. So it never disappoints.
It's awesome. It has a really cool pubby feel. We're kind of, surrounded by wood paneling. And
we've got a map of London, England.
Yes, there you go.
Paintings of like old kings, Queen Victoria over there.
Yeah. No, it's a real cool pubby feel. I like it. It makes me want to drink lots of the beer, to be honest.
Even at 4 p.m.
Yeah, why not?
And the cold is also incentive to keep us
Absolutely.
indoors.
Mate, it's horrendous today because we were going to do a nice little mini pub crawl and go different
We kind of canceled that just based on the extreme weather.
Let's
sit inside.
We're gonna hunker down
in the warm and drink
today.
Delicious beer.
Damn right.
As opposed to walking outside in the cold.
Hell no.
No.
Speaking of that, we were actually supposed to go on one of the Toronto Urban Adventures beer tour today.
Yeah,
Yes.
the beer makes history better. So that's
maybe
fine.
maybe we could talk about it even though we haven't done it. Or
So the reason, I guess, Jason, we will have given you guys a bit of a preface prior to this, but do you want to sort of let people know what your involvement is in the craft beer game?
For sure. Well, I've been a tour guide in Toronto for quite a few years, like 7 years now. I started working as a tour guide about 20 years ago. 7 years ago, I started my own tour company called Tour Guys.
Right.
And Intrepid Travel, which is this big international adventure travel company, they started a division called Urban Adventures, looking to create a brand for walking tours in cities around the world. Short 2 to 4 hour jaunts through a city with a theme. They contacted me. They said, we like what you're doing with tour guys and your walking tours in Toronto. Do you want to join Urban Adventures? I said, that sounds amazing. So I designed a Kensington Market and Chinatown tour, and you guys were in Kensington Market earlier today.
Yes.
It's an amazing neighborhood to explore, lots of really cool shops, restaurants, and also great craft beer. And the other itinerary that I developed was beer makes history better. So I figured what a great way to liven up a very dry subject like history with craft beer. So I like to say that we've taken this dry subject and we poured beer all over it and it made it much more palatable. So it's essentially a walk through Old Town Toronto. We stop at a bunch of different pubs. It's not a brewery tour. We figure if you want to go see a brewery, go see a brewery. Go to a brewery, take their tour. You'll have a great time. Our tour is about exploring the history of beer in Toronto and Ontario and hitting up some really awesome local spots that have a great local beer selection but aren't places that tourists would find. So it's our most popular tour. We were consistently selling out our tours last summer. So yeah, that's. I was hoping you guys would be able to join us today, but didn't happen.
We'll have to come back in the summer and give that a go when the weather's a little
nicer. It's a much better summer activity.
Yeah, today, and particularly today of all days.
Yeah, literally the coldest day
of in the last
Earth ever, all time, ever recorded in history. Yeah. So
I got into craft beer with this tour, and because I lead this tour and I spend my time teaching people about craft beer, I now go to beer festivals. I've made friends in the industry, so I know people that write about beer, that are bloggers, that are newspaper article writers, authors of books on beer history and lost breweries in Toronto.
So you met them through the tours?
Yeah, basically just an industry events. Right. So I wanted to be part of the craft beer industry because it's an awesome industry. Everyone seems to get along. Journalists have tried to dig up dirt on who doesn't get along with who in the craft beer world. It's like, no, everybody gets along.
We always talk about that. Everyone's so supportive in the craft beer world.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And friends of mine who work for breweries, they travel to events, in the U.S. and they find it's the same thing there. That it's all very supportive, and the people are passionate about beer. And I think that's one of the common things that I find in the craft beer industry and in tourism as well. You're not going to make $1 million, making craft beer.
It's a labor of love.
Exactly. And the same with tourism. Leading tours, you're not going to be filthy, stinking rich, in 10 years, but it's something that people really enjoy doing. Right. So I think that leading beer tours like ours, the Beer Makes History Better, it's just this perfect blend of craft beer and showing people a good time.
That's really dope.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, just to cut in, what we neglected to do was discuss the fucking beer we
have. We have a few pints in front of us right now.
This is delicious too.
Yeah.
So today we've got a Beau's Embittermint IPA, which is phenomenal as usual because Beau's couldn't make a shit beer if they tried.
No.
This is a 6.7% IPA. Like we were saying, Jason, you said before, you thought it was a cask because there's no head.
There's no real head on this beer, yeah.
It's definitely piney as shit.
Citrus.
Definitely citrus.
They said made with muddled mint. I kind of get a bit of like you said, I think more of the piney flavor than the mint, but a bit of a coolness on the end. Maybe that's where the mint comes in.
That's a good point. Coolness in the end there.
I think they're going for kind of like an orangey mint julep kind of a thing with this IPA,
which is pretty cool, man. I like it.
I think I'd have to say I wouldn't want an overpowering mint flavor in my beer, anyways.
No, particularly an IPA.
Yes, exactly. The subtlety of it, I think I appreciate more than an overwhelming, just like palate crashing mint. Explosion in your mouth.
Would be pretty sick, but like a mint porter or a mint stout, not a mint IPA.
Like I wouldn't want to chew a piece of peppermint gum and drink a beer at the same time. That sounds like
that. So maybe that's where the resiny, piney kind of flavors come from, like the mint itself. Maybe that's how it turns out. But this is fantastic. I hope they bottle it. Oh, is it available in bottles, or is that?
I don't think so. I think this is part of their February series. So they put out a new February brew every week for the month of February. So this is week 2.
Okay, cool.
This is the second.
Do you know what the first one was?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I didn't. This is the first I've heard of February.
Okay.
So the thing is with the craft beer industry, there's so much stuff happening. New breweries popping up.
Yeah.
It would be a full-time job just to keep track of everything that's going on in craft beer.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. It's intense. Even like now being in like Montreal and focusing on Montreal and Toronto pretty much exclusively, and then on Instagram, like I'm sure you guys have as well, like all the Americans who are posting some crazy shit all the time. Like I'm struggling. Like I feel
like America's a bit ahead of the game right now. We're playing catch up, but I mean I feel like Ontario specifically, it's growing exponentially.
Yeah, Ontario's going crazy, and the
brew pubs are popping up all over the place.
People are investing in craft, and I think that's the best thing. It helps with the tours. It gives you more places to go, even if it's not a brew pub per se, and it's a place like this that focuses on good beers, good food. Like it's a whole experience.
And like you said, you don't have to have 50 taps to be a beer bar. You have to have a lineup of good beers that complement each other.
You need to have someone on staff that knows what they're doing, that knows what beer is going to work, and to have a good spread. I was at a really good restaurant last night. The food was fantastic. They only had one tap, and it was Steam Whistle, which is a decent beer. But even their bottle and can selection, it was a couple beers from Mill Street, a couple from Amsterdam, 3 or 4 from Wellington,
so all local
and that was about it.
Yeah.
So basically, they're dealing with 4 suppliers. And they have a couple beers each. The place only had maybe 30 seats, so it's a small place. But it was a decent selection. They were just missing a dark beer, like a porter or a stout, and a wheat beer. If they had those on the list, it would have been, in
they would
my
have been
opinion, a complete
list, right? Exactly. I wanted to ask you, where does someone acquire this wealth of knowledge of beer and just everything to do with beer? Being a tour guide yourself, you know obviously a lot about it. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading. It's talking to people that are smarter than I am.
Right. Beer smarter though, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, as a tour guide, when I'm leading a tour, especially on craft beer, there are a lot of really knowledgeable people out there. And as a tour guide, I feel like I need to be the most knowledgeable person in the group.
Absolutely.
So when I'm not leading a tour and I go and I socialize with friends in the beer industry, I'm no longer the smartest person in the room when it comes to that subject. So I ask them questions.
You gotta be a sponge, right?
Yeah, like I'm a curious person. I don't like not knowing something. So when I get a question on a tour, like, how much does yeast affect the flavor of beer? You know, now I know, but when I first started, I had no idea. I thought that yeast was just part of the fermentation, that it didn't really matter.
Right.
And then I talked to a microbiologist from Molson Coors, and he was actually on the beer tour.
Oh, awesome.
And so we just got talking about yeast, and he's like, yeah, yeast is responsible for about 20% of the overall flavor of beer.
Damn.
Blew my mind. You know, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. And so now, you know, I know that the distinct characteristic of like a Belgian beer, it really stems from the yeast.
Exactly.
You know, you find there's this common sort of essence or flavor in almost every Belgian beer, and it's because of the yeast strains that they use. You know, they can use the same hops, the same malt, but it's that yeast that gives it that Belgian characteristic.
Absolutely.
So, like, my knowledge, like, I thought I knew enough to lead a tour when I first started, but now, I am a full, like, craft beer geek. I've done a little bit of home brewing.
I was going to ask you, have you done some of your...
I live in a very small condo.
Yes.
It's about 750 square feet with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and my wife.
Okay.
And it's a 2-bedroom. There's no way. So if I ever move into a house and I get a basement and I can have a man cave, I've warned my wife. I said, you want a house? Just be forewarned. If we move into a house, I'm going to be brewing.
Or even a garage or something.
Down.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's aware of that. She knows who she married.
she knew what she was getting into.
Exactly.
Yeah,
She's well aware. That's awesome. Yeah, the homebrew stuff is definitely, I feel like, for us being, like, I don't know, I guess because you're involved in it actively with tours and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, we just did the reviews and stuff, and the reviews is more like, we go to a brew pub, kind of similar stuff, and then we're talking about maybe the server or sometimes the brewmaster will come out when they see us writing reviews and shit.
Yeah.
And then they'll come and they'll start giving us information. So that's really cool. But homebrewing is definitely, I feel like, what we...
Homebrewing is
like
specifically my passion. I really like... I don't know, it's such a joy to handcraft your own beer and to see other people enjoy it.
Yeah.
And be able to manipulate it to taste how you want to. That's the most amazing thing to me.
Yeah.
So the beer thing kind of started with us through reviewing, and then through that we got into home brewing, and now it's evolved into this whole Craig started the blog Beer and Other Shit, and now it's become a podcast, and it's just like you said, the beer community is so, and video as well. Like you said, the beer community is just so supportive of everyone else within the community that it just grows like this. We've met you, and now we're on the podcast together, so
and then we'll keep
it's
going.
awesome. We just want to see where it keeps going, right? And
no, it's dope.
It's just fun, and then the music thing mixes in with it as well. Craig, obviously, I don't know if you've heard his song.
I'm a brewhead. I'm a brewhead.
Jason's
Absolutely, you are.
I shared that like crazy.
Yeah,
and
that's
still share.
Always. That's what I'm saying. Jason been supporting from the jump. So that's why I'm super glad we finally got to do this. I know we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
And I know that we have a few kind of like quasi-regular guests, like my brother Notion comes on. And I feel like we'll continue to do stuff like this with you, and we'll get some of your industry folks to come through and start getting, perspectives.
Yeah, I put it out there. I said, we've got, this podcast is happening. If you guys want to come and get in on it, you're more than welcome.
Day's notice.
So I got a lot of people that said, oh, wow, awesome, but sorry, can't do it. It was very last minute. But, there are people definitely that are interested in doing this. If people love craft beer, which they all do, a chance to get together with other people that also like beer to talk about
And
beer.
drink and talk about.
And drink it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
You can't say no,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, it's super good. And that's what we sort of found. People do like to talk about it. That's there is a lot to talk about. That's something I was just thinking before. So speaking of that, one thing that I see a lot of is everyone talking shit about craft beer where they make fun of like the hipsters being into it and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's because I don't leave my house that much or what it is, but I don't see that. I don't see the snobby. Like I've seen all those BuzzFeed videos and they're making fun of like the stupid names and these ridiculous hipsters and that.
Yeah.
On your tours, I guess, and in your experience, are you seeing that? Are you seeing like a type of demographic? Are you seeing that snobbery bullshit? Are you seeing just general curiosity from maybe Keith's drinkers or something? Like, what's the...
Yeah, I guess on the tours we get a mix of people. I've had people on the tour who are extremely knowledgeable about beer, and with knowledge comes great power. But I've had people who are brewers themselves, who are Cicerones. I've had Canada's only master Cicerone, Mirella Amato.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's a friend.
Yeah,
and she came on the tour. She like a Cicerone is like a beer sommelier. She's the only master Cicerone in Canada. And she came on the Beer Makes History Better tour. She gave me the thumbs up on the info.
Awesome. We should get her on the podcast
but on that tour, like you would never know that she was a master Cicerone. She never stepped on my toes as a tour guide. She wants people to fall in love with beer and to appreciate it, but she doesn't flaunt that knowledge.
Right.
I've had other people on the tours who were also like real beer geeks and were not as restrained as Mirella. So I've seen a little bit of that. We do get a lot of people on the tours too who they sign up because it's a beer tour, and usually when I meet the group I ask everybody what their favorite beer is, or what favorite style, or whatever.
It's a good icebreaker.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of file that away because when we go to these pubs, then I can recommend different beers for them to try based on what they like.
Right.
That's a great idea.
And when I get people who say like, oh, I'm a Coors Light drinker. I love Coors Light. That's all I drink at home. I like Coors Light. Bud Light is okay. Miller Light, not a big fan. I'm like, okay, so you're into... I'm thinking this. I'm not saying, I'm like, okay, you're into shitty light lagers.
Fake lagers.
Yeah.
Lagers.
So you're into rice beer. So then I can steer them towards some things that aren't going to be
offensive
a huge
to them
leap.
based on their palate. Right?
Yeah, I'm not going to give them like a 90 IBU like double IPA.
Right.
I'm going to say, okay, start
That would
with...
be funny though.
Yeah, so I encourage people to get outside their box and try something new. But I actually like having the people that say, oh, I like IPAs. I drink Alexander Keith's all the time. It's like, okay, we got a bit of work to do. Yeah. So
I saw that.
I saw it on here.
Like everything's south
Everything's
of,
fantastic.
and
then they got that. They've got some Germans.
I saw there was a wheat beer there. Pretty good list here.
Yeah,
This is their list for the
Hacker Shore is good. Fuller's is decent. It's all right. Then they have Guinness.
Right?
Yeah,
People drink that stuff.
Right? Yeah, people there are people that are habitual Guinness drinkers. That's all they'll drink.
Yes.
So I know people who are like, oh, I don't drink beer except for Guinness, or they'll say, I don't drink beer, but I drink Guinness. Guinness is a stout. It's not a beer. It's like, well, no, it is, but it's a stout as a kind of beer.
Yes, exactly.
Slow down.
But yeah, no, it's good, and I love the opportunity to introduce people to craft beer that otherwise wouldn't go on their own.
Right.
There is, I think, an opportunity there that I'm hoping to take advantage of, where there are people who are interested in learning more about beer, but they don't have a fun way to go about doing it. Meaning, to learn about craft beer, you have to either go to a craft beer festival and be surrounded by people who are craft beer geeks, or you have to go to a workshop and you might think, oh, there's going to be a lot of like this pretentious hipster attitude.
Right.
I think a lot of people, even though I don't see a lot of that pretentiousness in the craft beer industry, I think a lot of people who are not in it, thanks to the BuzzFeed commercials and whatnot, they think that if they go about learning about craft beer, they're either going to become a hipster or they're going to have to deal with that pretentiousness of that in the environment. So what I'd like to do, this is something I've already been talking to a bar about, is like a beer 101, because a lot of people who drink like Molson Canadian or Budweiser, they don't know the difference between a lager and an ale.
Right.
Like that very basic distinction, they don't know.
Right.
So there is an opportunity to educate, and maybe after knowing what an ale is and what a lager is and what an adjunct is and what an IPA is and a porter and a stout, like just the definitions
basic
of
stuff,
and the flavor profile of those things.
What to
maybe
expect when
they'll
you're drinking
maybe
each.
they'll start exploring and and dabbling and maybe turn to the light side. And start drinking craft beer and put away the Coronas and the Coors Lights.
Well, I think, like you said, knowledge is power. Knowing what you're drinking is half the battle, really. And we introduced ourselves to some, just going to Jolly Pumpkin. We had some sour beers before we appreciated sour beers, and we were kind of put off by it because we didn't know what we were having.
Yep.
And
We hated it for years.
we hated it. I was like, this is terrible. This is not, because it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what I
We didn't know
knew
it was
beer
sour,
to
that
be.
was the problem.
But we didn't know. That's the problem. But now,
this is off.
right? We almost thought it was. We looked at them and we're
all
like, they all
It's
taste
infected.
like, yeah, it's supposed to be.
Which it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That was like 3-4 years ago.
Now
actually, and
I'm
we're
falling
down
in
it.
love with sour beers. Like it's
But
like
it took that time of like brewing beer, of now exploring them, trying different ones, actively writing about it. So that's why when we do the reviews, or I do the reviews, it's good because like I get to analyze rather than just okay, this is cool. When you actually sit down and you stop for
and break
5
it down.
minutes
And the brewing
you
helped
write
with
it
that
down,
as well. To
the
brew
brewing
beer
helped a lot,
from
'cause then
scratch,
you
you
realize-
understand what
That's
goes
why
into
I felt I had to try my hand at home brewing.
You have
and it was
to,
my
yeah.
friend Matt, who now works for, King Brewery.
Yep.
Just
Oh,
north of the
sick.
city.
We've been there. Yeah.
So it was brewing with him. I felt as a beer tour guide, I needed to get that hands-on experience to understand the process of making beer in order to talk about it. Even though now I don't have, I'd like to do more home brewing, but it's not something that I am deeply passionate about.
Right.
My perspective now is let's leave that to the professionals. I am a great appreciator of beer, but that was a great education. I think if you are going to teach something, you really need to know the whole process.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'd like more beer drinkers to understand the process, to understand, what makes beer.
Right.
So with our tours too, often people say, I learned a lot about beer on the tour, and I didn't feel like it was this pretentious kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people say to us that they've taken like beer tasting events or beer appreciation workshops, and they felt that the tour, the way that we did it, in such a casual, friendly, non-pretentious,
Very approachable.
that they loved that. So that's something that we're hoping to do more of in the future, are these sort of get-togethers where there'll be one of our tour guides who's used to explaining beer to people that know nothing about it,
Right.
but want to learn more in that sort of safe environment.
People need that, I think, because craft is so good, and
Yeah.
that's what always bothered me when I saw the hipster shit or whatever. Like, what's your problem? Like fuck, can't people just enjoy good
Yeah.
beer? But maybe there are dickheads who dress like lumberjacks and take it too far.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen it.
Well,
so,
I get criticized. I brought a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada to
Rochelle's house.
a 3-year-old's birthday party because
you're a thug.
and
that's how you grow.
all the parents are drinking, so I thought I'd bring some beer. I bring my own beer,
Yeah.
and other people were drinking. Everyone seemed to be drinking Rolling Rock, which is fine, to each their own. But
I used to drink that when I didn't know any
Right,
better,
exactly.
because it's a pretty decent
light lager,
Light
like
lager,
you said,
yeah.
exactly.
I ain't mad at
So I brought out my Sierra Nevada, and everyone was so offended that I brought a beer that wasn't, in the top 10 at the beer store.
When you say offended, what do you mean though? Are they giving you shit, or are they like
oh, look, you've brought your fancy beer. I'm like, it's
Mr. Fancy
it's
Pants.
a pale ale. It's just a pretty straightforward,
Yeah. Well, I was the guy in university, going to parties in 1996, 98, bringing Waterloo Dark.
Nice.
Brick
Couldn't
was
handle
one
it.
of the.
I love that stuff, actually.
It's an American
I do.
lager,
Oh,
American dark lager. It's solid.
It is really good.
But people were like, they were all drinking like
Bud
just the
and Bud Light,
cheapest,
right? Exactly.
Shit,
PBR,
like Laker, or like whatever students drank.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was not into that kind of beer, so I was always bringing, like Waterloo or Red Cap or
You were early in the
You
craft.
started, yeah.
yeah.
96, like fuck, there's no way I didn't know what the hell that was. I wasn't even drinking beer in 96. You were serious right
Well,
now. That's great.
Yeah.
Is it? I worked for a kind of chain of restaurants called Moxie's before, and they brought in. I believe
Did you have to wear the really short skirt?
Yes, that was me. That was me in the little tutu and the high boots. Yeah.
That's the uniform at Moxie's.
It is. Or at least it used to be. I don't know if it is anymore.
No, it still is.
Yeah, it used to be mini skirt. Lots of complaints about that from families,
Especially on days like today.
But they had, I believe it's brick beer, and they brew a grasshopper wheat, based out of Calgary, I believe.
Yeah.
That's Big Rock you're thinking.
Big Rock, yes.
Rock, yeah.
Big Rock, yes. Sorry.
What's Brick?
Brick is.
It used to be Waterloo,
They own Waterloo.
Are they the parent company?
Yeah. So it's like
Are they-
Brick,
yes,
Brick
okay.
Brewing,
they-
and they
never
own
seen
their
them.
brands. They own Waterloo. They also got the license to brew Red Cap, which was one of the top-selling lagers in like the 1950s. So they basically brought back that recipe.
Right.
And
Rebranded it type
yeah,
thing.
but the whole Waterloo, like Waterloo does a Radler now.
Yes, I did see
which
that.
is awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, they're
it's
Radler.
light. It's light, isn't it?
You know what? It's not as light. It's like 4 point something.
Right,
Which
it's
a lot
not
of
3
a
point
lot of
something, right.
Radlers are like 2,
Yeah,
2.5.
yeah.
This is
Got a
actually
little kick
closer
to
to
it.
like a light beer. It's
Yeah,
got some
yeah,
kick.
nice.
So it's something that's a little more fun to drink than say like a Stiegel.
Right.
Radler.
Yeah. I like it. It's local stuff. It's technically craft. Speaking of that, so something else that we came across recently was this article that it was craft beer versus indie beer. And we were talking about this last night very briefly, and I wanted to get your perspective on that. You know, like you know what's up already. I guess the article was saying that the term craft beer, everyone hates it. It's now being poisoned by the shit we were just talking about with the hipster thing.
Yep.
And they're calling it indie beer as an independent beer, just like independent music. As far as that being the more accurate term to describe what we're participating in. What are your thoughts?
I think it's because you're getting craft breweries that are being bought by larger breweries.
Right.
And so it used to be there was this huge amount of pride in being known as a craft beer. And the idea that, it's made from simple ingredients without a lot of adjuncts. Small batch
Yeah.
by people who really care first and foremost about the product, about the actual liquid itself, versus caring about
The brand
sales
and
and the
the-
brand.
right.
Because when you buy a Budweiser, you're not actually buying the beer; you're buying into the brand.
The lifestyle almost.
Exactly. It's like there was a comedy troupe called the Frantics here in Toronto, and they had an old actually no, was it the Frantics or it might have been the Air Farce, but it was this radio sketch where guy walks into a beer store. He goes, "Hey, well, welcome to the beer store. How can I help you?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a beer. I don't know much about it." He's like, "Oh, well, maybe I can help you. Let me ask you some questions. Are you into beach volleyball?" "No, I'm not really into sports." Like, "Are you into football?" No. "Are you into rock concerts?" Like, "No, I like more classical music." How about? And he named all these things that you normally see in beer
Associated
commercials.
with beer, yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm not really into any of that." And so he said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do for you." And so he left.
There's no beer.
So I mean,
that sums up big beer.
yeah, that's big beer. So
That's
craft
awesome.
was kind of the antithesis of big beer. All about flavor, all about the passion. But now you have these established craft beer brands being bought by the big guys, and so
We're seeing a lot of that, I feel like, in recent times.
Absolutely, like Mill Street was scooped up.
Exactly, yeah.
Mill Street bought Brickworks cider.
Yes, right after they were acquired by
Boom.
Labatt. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are saying like, "Oh man, those guys sold out. We're
out,
indie.
yeah.
Like we're doing it ourselves. We're not." So what's happening is these craft beer brands, like AB InBev, they bought Goose Island.
Yes.
Goose Island is still making
The same beer that they were
incredible
before.
beers.
Exactly.
So from a beer drinker perspective, I don't think, I'm not going to change what I like based on, at the very top, who owns it.
Right.
I'm going to drink products that I really enjoy. So Goose Island I will still drink. Mill Street I will still drink because I know the people who make the beer.
Yes,
like the people are not changing. It's still
Even
the
with
same
where the
recipes.
money goes at the end of the day, because say for example that Budweiser Super Bowl ad that was shitting on craft beer, like we're proudly big or whatever, which was a big fuckery because they made fun of I don't know if it was Elysian actually. They made the peach fucking what was it? Peach something ale, peach pumpkin.
Yeah,
Pumpkin, yes,
And they made fun of it. Then they bought a craft brew that actually makes one. That's amazing. The irony is incredible.
That's amazing.
But and I agree.
Yeah.
I've been to. We went to Goose Island before. That was after 2011.
You
they
went
got
to
bought.
Goose Island?
You didn't go?
No.
Oh. Well, we went to Tiff and I went to Goose Island in 2012.
Yeah.
And phenomenal beer. Did not know that it was purchased at the time.
Yeah.
I still have their beers if that's all that's available. Even though they are quality, I am.
It taints it a little bit.
It taints it, not with the. I agree with you. I was still drinking milk. Like I went to Mill Street for over Christmas like twice. Went to both the different ones. I know that money's going to Labatt's pockets, right? But
At the end of the day, though, if it's good beer, it's good beer.
it's also-
as long as the product is not changed, as long as the company doesn't.
does it bother you?
But
that
they haven't shut down the brewery, so they
Yes.
actually invested in the brewery. They're going to be hiring more locals, so they're
Right.
actually they're injecting more money
I'm okay
into
with that.
Mill Street. They're
I'm
going
okay
to hire
with that.
more people, and as Mill Street grows, they're going to be able to hire more reps across Canada. Like they want to expand across Canada,
Right.
so
And
it
I
means
was
more
hoping to get
jobs
it in
for
Montreal,
Canadians.
to be honest, from this. Because all they need is a warehouse in Montreal,
Exactly.
and they get Quebec distribution. Because
Yeah.
now we have Beau's, thank fuck.
I think what people are thinking of is, well, they might not have this long of a historical memory, but E.P. Taylor, who was a businessman, he was a famous horse breeder. He was in the 1950s and 60s. If someone said, imagine a millionaire, you'd think of like short, chubby guy, top hat, monocle, the
yeah.
Monopoly guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That was E.P. Taylor. Edward Plunkett Taylor. What he did was after the Great Depression, he went and he bought all of these struggling breweries, hundreds of them in Ontario, shut them all down except for about 11. And he folded them all into one company that was, I think it was called the Ontario Brewing Company. And then he said, what the masses want are bland, generic lagers.
Yeah.
And so we went from having this incredible diversity of brewing to a big corporation or one
And this
guy
is
buying
far
it all.
before the craft boom, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
this is like we're talking 1920s, 1930s.
Yeah.
He went about buying up all these small breweries, closing almost all of them, keeping a handful, combining them, and that eventually merged with Molson. So
Okay,
that's
okay.
why you had Molson and Labatt being the dominant brands
Right.
in Canada because of E.P. Taylor basically killing off the diversity. And so it's now we're just getting back to the variety and number of breweries that we had back in the
Yeah.
early 20th century.
Right.
So what the big brands, what they're doing is when they're buying these craft breweries, they're trying to get market share, but they know that the customers who buy those brands will drop them like a bad habit if
they
the recipe
change.
changes.
Exactly.
So they're going to have
They're smart
to
enough to
really
know,
try
yeah.
to either distance themselves from it. Like I think Molson was smart with Creemore to keep their hands off the operation. They said, we bought Creemore and Granville Island. We're just going to help with distribution, help you increase production, get our best brewers on board, because when you scale up a recipe, it changes. You
Absolutely.
can't brew, in a 10 hectoliter tank the same beer that you would brew in like 100 hectoliters. So
Yeah.
like it changes the flavor. But that's where the best brewers that they have can come in and say, here's how we can preserve the flavor without compromising quality. And then we can up the production, up the scale, get it out to more people so more people can enjoy that brand. So, a lot of people, I saw a lot of negative reaction to the purchase of Mill Street by Labatt. And I was one of these voices saying, like, I don't think it's that bad a thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to
Affect the beer,
Like
the
Joel
flavor,
Manning
right?
is still the brewmaster.
Yeah.
And I know him.
Yeah.
Like, he's a great guy. He's going to make sure that the product will still be solid. I know a couple of the brewers that work in the Mill Street Brewery. Their rules aren't changing. So I don't know.
So they're not getting screwed.
Yeah.
The people are still getting their beer. It's just the money lines the pockets of the big companies, which my only thing as more of a purist in the sense, I guess that's why I was kind of asking, like, lining the pockets of the dudes who are technically trying to fuck with the industry itself and that, like, I don't want to be like one of those dicks that like, oh, you got to keep it small because it's craft, man. Like, like it's redundant. I'm all about growth as well, so I understand. I guess it's more like it's a very there's an ethics issue in the sense of like, what do you? I want to support Mill Street. I think as an entrepreneur, like we were saying, I know you said that on when I posted it, you had some really insightful stuff when you said on Facebook, and you were like, you pretty much said, what you just said now. But like, if I was the Mill Street dudes and I could get an extra 10-20 mil by like selling a portion of the company or whatever it was to Labatt to scale, if I'm like gonna keep cruising, or if I'm like, I could scale this and I could create more jobs, like even though it would probably have hurt like Joel being a craft guy. He might have been like,
but it's business when it comes down to business. Business.
And I get it, because if you're that, I would have been like, you got to. It's most likely done the same.
Mill Street for the last 10 years, they've been trying to build their brand to the point where like they had investors who they wanted to get the maximum return on their investment. So that's like all it was. Thing. Okay, so they wanted it to be bought where they could basically cash out. Labatt has been knocking on Mill Street's door for many years. I don't know exactly how long, and this is just something that I've heard through little birds that I know in the industry, that they've been knocking on the doors of Mill Street for a long time, and now it's finally happened. I think they were waiting for kind of craft to peak, where they could get the most amount of value from selling. So they said no for many, many years, and then finally went, okay, we'll pull the trigger, we'll sell. Because the market is being flooded now. There's so many more craft beers that are coming out, that the more players you have, suddenly that brand that you have, it's now accompanied by so many other brands. There's a chance that the value might go down. If you're like the number one selling craft beer brand, 1 year, 5 years later, there might be someone else who gains on you and your value drops. So Mill Street was the number one, it was the most award-winning craft brewery in Canada. So they racked up all kinds of medals and international awards and accolades and a huge fan base. And they saw that was growing. And so they held off as long as they felt that growth was going to increase.
Right, exactly.
Boom.
And did that.
That's a smart move.
The first thing I did see,
business-wise, brilliant.
It's brilliant. I did see Beau's immediately claim, as soon as that happened, we are now the largest craft brewery in Canada.
Yes, exactly.
In Canada, not just Ontario.
And OCB, Ontario Craft Brewing Association, basically, they pulled Mill Street's membership. Immediately, they're like, boom, you're out of the craft beer. So they basically revoked that.
Can they put that label on their beer now? No, so they can't. Right.
So the average person, this is where I'm torn. Like the average person now will get to experience Mill Street more likely. Now they're going to be in Quebec, whereas it took Beau's forever, which is a good thing. And now I get to while I'm there, I have the choice between Mill Street and Beau's, on top of all the phenomenal Quebec craft beers. However, then you've got, do they lose? Like, at what point? Because when a corporation, I've worked for corporations before, I know how these cunts work. Like, if at some point they may start to, I don't want to do it that way. I know they have that power to change it. Like, we actually had a very interesting conversation with Creemore after the Lot 9 Pilsner. So we did our very first Beer and Other Shit video, which was just like a little test thing. And we reviewed the Pilsner. And I think when I reviewed it on Instagram, I ended up getting the brewmaster from Creemore commenting, because our theory was that Molson dabbled in the recipe of Lot 9, because all the rest of Creemore
tastes completely different.
Really different.
It tastes so macro compared to their other beer.
Should we order another?
We should order another. What I was actually going to say was what we'll do. We'll wrap this one up and we'll do a part 2. We'll do a 2-part.
Absolutely.
Because this is 40 minutes, and then we'll do a quick intro. This has been a great conversation. We should definitely do a second.
Let's order another beer and continue this.
This is episode 14. This is Jason. How you say your last name again?
Kucherawy.
Damn right.
Never gonna remember.
It's a hard name to grow up with.
It is Toronto Urban Adventures. Episode 14. We're at House on Parliament, downtown Toronto. Cold as fuck. So we're going to come back with episode 15, and we'll drink something else.
Wicked.
Thank you for that. You're a sick cunt.
Thanks, man.
Guys, my pleasure.
Cheers.
Bam.